I did that unprompted and you just followed my lead.
Of course.
Now let's analyze why.
Because I want to be fun too.
Oh, cool.
I want to do something fun.
Okay, great. So I hope this podcast is fun for you. We only have a couple episodes left now.
I know. Definitely bittersweet.
To it. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Well, I like the excuse to watch movies and talk about them, but it's also a lot of work.
I love doing the podcast. It's just, I want to do other stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But this week, actually last week, we made a faux pas and we waited like a full week or two before recording the episode. We watched 1963's The Great Escape.
Right.
And I don't like waiting so long after watching the movie before recording the episode because I feel like I forget half of my first impressions.
Fair enough.
So we're going to make believe right now, or maple leaf if you're talking to, 5-year-old me or 5-year-old Kevin Laporte. We're going to make believe and role play that we just finished watching the movie and the credits just rolled. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and action.
Wow, that was great. I loved it.
Well, I got a 5-word review for you right now.
Okay, what's the review?
There's your 3-hour movie.
There's your 3-hour movie. We were talking, we're like, does the escape happen like around halfway? And you looked and it's like almost exactly halfway.
Like after. We were talking about this after.
Yeah.
You're wrecking the role play. We're acting like we just finished the movie. Okay, hang on. And scene. Okay, we're going to start over. Okay. Motivation. The credits are currently rolling.
Okay,
and action. Wow!
Wow!
There's your 3-hour movie. I'll buy that for $1.
Steve McQueen did a wheelie. Wow!
Okay, so as we watch the credits roll, the log line, if you're not in the know, for The Great Escape from 1963. Allied prisoners of war plan for several hundred of their number to escape from a German camp during World War II. Starring Steve McQueen, James Garner, Richard Attenborough, Charles Bronson, James Donald, and others.
Several as in 700. Because I'm pretty sure Richard Attenborough was like 200 men, and they're like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Did you?
It was great. It was okay. So there was maybe a couple scenes pre-escape that they maybe could have like shortened a bit to be like, just to be at a better like paced clip. But the second half was pretty tight, I think.
Yeah.
Because you had like the tension of like, okay, is the escape plan going to happen? What's going to happen? Are they going to be able to escape correctly? Like, there was a lot riding on those moments. It's like, and just like clench your fists, like that kind of thing. Whereas the first half, it's like, okay, are they going to be able to do it? I really liked when there was a lot of insight about characters and what was going on and them hiding their plans from people. But there was just like a couple scenes that just felt like it could have been like shortened or tweaked or whatever. I don't know.
Right. Well, I thought you were really gonna like it because you like scheming scenes.
Yes.
You like putting together and executing a plan kind of scenes.
Yeah, like a heist.
I'm assuming you probably got that from watching Home Alone as a kid.
Huh.
If I had to imagine.
Maybe.
Putting together a plan, executing it, being all sneaky about it, being like, haha, I got you. That kind of thing. Because that's what you liked about Better Call Saul.
Yes, those were my favorite parts of Better Call Saul. Is Saul Goodman is so good. Like they call him like,
Slippin' Jimmy.
Yeah, he's all about like the plan. And that's when that show was at its best for me. And when it was at its lowest, it was just like his brother talking to him and just being like, oh, you're just such a screw up and blah, blah, blah. It was like, blah. I don't care.
Well, in that vein, I wanted to talk about the dialogue in this movie. What was it? What is it about a movie like this that makes me feel so engaged in every piece of dialogue, save for one scene, compared to something like Lawrence of Arabia, where I feel like it's all like going over my head, going right past me. And I feel like Lawrence of Arabia, I'm like just trying to hang on and keep up with everything that's happening. And it's like they're also executing complicated plans, but something about the way that they talk about it in Great Escape,
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I'm following every word and I know exactly what's going on, except for the scene at the beginning where he's talking about kind of the head POW, if you want to say, like the
Okay.
British leader.
Yeah.
At first, I thought that he was a fellow German. I didn't. It took me a while to start recognizing the badges on the
Yeah, the
uniforms.
dynamics of that was a little weird.
But it took me a bit to tune in. But after that, I was fine.
Here is my take. You're not really much into politics. You don't really care about that. You don't really care about war stuff that much.
No, but sorry, I'll let you continue.
So Lawrence of Arabia was a lot more about like formulating a plan to go into a battle to like take people out. Whereas The Great Escape is like formulating a plan with a lot of exposition where it's like this person's going to do this task, this person's going to do this task. That's part of the reason why I think I like a heist movie is the exposition makes sense because the characters need to inform each other of what's going on. So it makes sense that they're spelling it out because they need to have their plan clear. So it also makes it clear to the audience in a very specific way. Whereas in other movies, it's like, hey, little brother, you sad about mom and dad dying 1 year ago today? And it's like, that I just don't like when it doesn't feel organic. For something like this, it's like we have to plan that this person's gonna dig this hole, so it makes sense to lay out the info and be super clear about what's going on.
Yeah, well, but there's nothing inherently boring or confusing about planning an attack versus planning an escape. Like,
Right.
They were almost kind of similar in that regard, and they're both super long movies, and we'll get into why I felt like the length was justified in The Great Escape in a second.
The pacing was definitely a lot better.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think maybe part of it had to do with the fact that there were so many more established and memorable characters in The Great Escape.
That's true.
So like if they were like, oh, this character is going to do this part of the plan, I'm like, okay, I know who they're talking about and I can visualize that happening. And so when it happens later, I'm following along and I'm understanding. Whereas the people were a lot harder to keep track of in Lawrence of Arabia.
It's ironic because they're both like based on a true story things.
Well, somewhat. I don't know how much you research The Great Escape, but it's like very, very loosely based on a true story.
Well, so is Lawrence of Arabia, sort of.
The Great Escape seems like it's about as based on a true story as Lawrence of Arabia was, in that a lot of it happened, but a lot of it was either fabricated for the movie or fabricated by Lawrence in his writings.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is at least this, like, even if they're based on a true story, The Great Escape utilizes the many little playable characters and gives them a voice, gives them distinct scenes and moments that makes it overall more memorable as a whole, whereas Lawrence of Arabia is mostly about Lawrence. So it makes it a lot more boring, especially because, like, you have a lot of scenes with Lawrence, but you don't. Well, I don't know. I'm probably being too hard on Lawrence. There is some character growth. There is some interesting character scenes for Lawrence, but it's a lot to have one long movie resting on one character.
Yeah. The actor has to pull a lot of weight as well to do that. I think the burden is more easily shared across this excellent and entertaining ensemble cast that The Great Escape had. I didn't feel like there was a weak link among the cast. Like anytime one of those characters was on screen, I was really enjoying it.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I feel like that is what makes this movie deserve its long runtime, is because it sets all these characters up in the first half, and then in the second half, I couldn't wait to see what happened. Every fiber of my being wanted to know what happened next, especially because it said at the beginning it was based on real events. I wanted the movie to keep going because I'm like, we haven't reached a conclusion for each of these characters yet. I want to see where each and every one of them lands. And spoilers for The Great Escape, I really did not expect so few of them to make it out.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be like a mass exodus.
True. I think because they're trying to pull from a more realistic standpoint that not a lot of them made it out. But like the whole thesis statement of them escaping is it is our job to make the Nazis' jobs as hard as possible and pull their attention away from the actual war. And like distract them and like waste a lot of resources on capturing the POWs instead of fighting in the war. So they definitely accomplished that because they like scattered all over, took forever. Some people were able to escape, others weren't. Very, very interesting. I feel like as a modern audience member, I expected the movie to more or less end-ish after them escaping.
Yeah.
Kind of like Shawshank Redemption.
Or Chicken Run.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see that next. We talked about this. So like I every like scene that came up, I'm like, I can't believe this movie is still going on. But it was well paced that I wasn't like thinking about runtime really. Because if I had thought about it, I'd be like, oh yeah, like we're only like 2 hours in. Of course, there's like a whole hour of whatever going on.
I was thinking about it only in the capacity of like, I wasn't like, oh my goodness, how is this not over yet? I was more so thinking like, how, like, where are we in the runtime considering what's happening? Like, is there an hour left or is there 10 minutes left? Because if there's an hour left or if there's 10 minutes left, that's fine. I'm just very curious because once they started making it out, like I was influenced by Chicken Run, like I've said, in which they, spoilers for Chicken Run, they escape and then the movie ends. So once they got out, I was like, okay, we're probably wrapping up pretty soon. And they kept showing Steve McQueen driving on the motorcycle. And I was like, surely he's like far enough away by now. And then they show them start to close in. And I'm like, oh, I see why the movie's still going. It's not over yet.
Yep.
So that was stressful, but it was so exciting.
Made it worth it for sure.
Yeah. I have been excited to watch this movie for years, probably for over a decade, ever since basically I found out that it existed.
For sure.
And I knew that there was going to be a scene with Steve McQueen on a motorcycle. And after
he's
all
known
these,
for his racing, right?
I don't know
like
about racing, but like supposedly they wrote in the motorcycle scene specifically because Steve McQueen asked them to because he wanted to show off his motorcycle
I kind of
skills.
figured, yeah.
So all these years later of waiting, it was so worth it.
Definitely.
It lived up to what I hoped this movie would be, especially the surprisingly really exciting moment where he jumps the fence on the motorcycle. Like
that was unexpected.
Yeah, the jump itself, it wasn't so crazy spectacular, especially the way that it was shot. But there was so much tension during that scene because they're closing in on him from both sides. We're kind of like gripping each other, like, oh, what's gonna happen? And then when he went, vroom, we were like, whoa!
Because like, I think not very many actors, like it was pretty clear that it was him doing it, and I think not many other. Are you gonna say something?
I'm getting ready to say something.
Okay,
keep going.
I feel like not a lot of people do their own stunts except for maybe like Tom Cruise or something notably, you know. So I found that interesting for sure. What do you have to say?
Well, I think it's in my trivia here, but I'll just go off the cuff and say basically it was the stunt double that did it, but only because they wouldn't let Steve McQueen do it for insurance reasons.
Yeah, I kind of thought that.
I believe he still did it like when the cameras weren't rolling and he still did it. So like it wasn't him on film, but it may as well have been.
Because he could do it.
He could do it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing is like they don't.
But not discrediting the stuntman.
No, I mean, yeah, stunts are important. We did like a whole short documentary about stunts.
Yeah.
That's a tough job, and it deserves a lot of respect for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, pivoting subjects just a little bit. Yeah. What I did not know going in, and I did not like consciously check it when I was watching, but after watching it and reading up about it a little bit, the charade is over. By the way, we waited a week. It's fine. Not role playing anymore. After reading up about it a bit, I found it so interesting that the first half of the movie and the second half of the movie, almost to the second, have completely different tones. The first half is all about it, like getting the best of the guards and like sneaking around and putting together their plan. And there's more lightheartedness. They're like drinking moonshine, and like right at the end of the moonshine scene, when the mole character, I can't remember his name, but I think they refer to him as the mole, when he tries to climb the fence and gets, knowing that he's going to get shot down, and he gets shot down. That's the exact point where the movie's tone shifts. And after that, it gets way more serious. It gets way more somber. And it's like that until the end.
For sure, because it's like, oh, stuff got real.
Yeah.
Like Steve McQueen is like, all right, I'm doing it. Because before he was like, I'm not going to go out and purposely get caught and then have to spend time in solitude. Like, that sounds terrible. And then after that happened, he's like, okay, I need to do this for the team.
Yeah. Such an amazing tonal shift.
Amazing, yeah.
I can't point to too many movies that have a big tonal shift halfway through, but
Parasite.
I would say this is one of the best. Yeah, Parasite is a great one.
That is to the T, like to the minute as well. It's like the first half is like a lighthearted heist movie, and the second half is like drama horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Such a great tonal shift, because it feels like it puts you in the place of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like at that point, it's, you know, they're trying to get the best of the Nazis, haha. But then it's like, okay, now we really need to buckle down. It's like, now it's personal, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that aspect of it. And we went back and we looked, and it was like almost to the second that
that was very tight.
Yeah.
I definitely love watching like a good plan come together. And I find it like something like this, it's so high tension. It's like you could be shot and like dead if you don't get it right.
Mm-hmm.
So every person that came out of the hole, it's like, okay, are they gonna make it? Are they gonna make it? Like, there was just such high tension.
Yeah, it was like the first half of the movie was Chicken Run, and the second half of the movie was Shawshank Redemption.
Definitely.
Basically.
Yeah.
Which I loved. So I'll go into some pieces of trivia here. So one day, the police in the Germantown where this movie was shot, which was shot in Germany on
That's
location.
so interesting.
We were joking. You were like, "Oh, I wonder if it was shot on location." I like made a dumb joke. It was shot on location. That became more clear towards the end when they were driving through the landscapes. Stuff.
Germany is beautiful, and I think it definitely gets a bad rap because of the bad history. And probably in the 60s, they're like, okay, like, we're very sorry, Hollywood. We're very like, especially because Hollywood back then and now is so like Jewish centric. They're probably like, okay, we need to make amends. They can shoot here.
Yeah. So one day, the police in the Germantown where this movie was shot set up a speed trap near the set. Several members of the cast and crew were caught, including Steve McQueen. The chief of police told McQueen, "Herr McQueen, we have caught several of your comrades today, but you have won the prize for the highest speeding." McQueen was arrested and briefly jailed.
I wonder what his speed was.
In this movie, several Americans, including Hiltz and Henley, were amongst the escapees. In real life, American officers assisted with the construction of the escape tunnel, but were not amongst the escapees because the Germans moved them to a remote compound just before the escape. And in classic Hollywood fashion, they eliminated a large portion of Canadian participation in what happened.
I do think they mentioned some people being Canadian.
But it was more in real life, I believe.
Just like Argo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Argos were like it was Canadians like were pretty involved. But it's like the patriotism, especially back then, I think, because the Vietnam War was around that time period in the 60s. They're like, America, we gotta like, Americans get out, and in like reality they didn't.
Yeah. So what I found really interesting about reading up about this, that like I felt gobsmacked by these facts, but also kind of stupid that I didn't think about it, is like we think of World War II as happening a long time ago, right? And if we watch a movie that's in color, we think about those two events as being so far apart, right? Or at least I do. But it was made in the 60s, in the early 60s, not very long after. And so would it interest you to know there are actors in The Great Escape who were in World War II, some of whom were involved in like some of the same scenarios, or at least similar scenarios.
That would be so traumatizing though.
Yeah.
Like PTSD.
I think I have that in my trivia.
That's
somewhere,
wild.
we'll
That's kind of cool though. Because like World War II went on for pretty long, but it was like the 30s and the 40s, pretty much.
I think it ended in 45.
And then, yeah, so it's only like less than 20 years later, pretty much. That's crazy. That's like someone doing like, I don't even want to say, but like, you know, an early tragedy from like the early 2000s now making a biopic about it. It's like, it feels kind of soon.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So I'll dive in. I have a lot of trivia here, actually, because the stories behind this movie are very fascinating. So I'll just rattle some off. Charles Bronson, who portrays the chief tunneler, brought his own expertise and experiences to the set. He had been a coal miner before turning to acting and gave director John Sturges advice on how to move the dirt. As a result of his work in the coal mines, Bronson suffered from claustrophobia, just as his character had.
That was rough. I felt for that guy. It's like, you know, when I had to, when the chips were down, when everyone needed me, you know, I'm going to push through, I'm going to build this tunnel. But now when like I have to like actually escape, like, I don't know.
Yeah. So
it's rough.
Wally Floody, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Floody, Wally Floody, was the real life tunnel king. He was transferred to another camp just before the escape, and he served as a consultant to the filmmakers almost full time for more than a year.
Well, that's cool.
So there was somebody who was a consultant there being like, yep, I was there. This is how it happened.
That's so nuts. Crazy. That's like doing, like, we have kind of modern movies kind of like that, like, but it's kind of lame in comparison, like The Social Network and stuff like that, where it's like, yep, that wasn't even that long ago. Let me tell you how it was.
Yep. Several cast members were actual POWs during World War II. That
is so wild. I'd get so freaked out.
Donald Pleasance was held in the German camp Stalag Luft 1, Hannes Messimer in a Russian camp, and Teal Kieway and Hans Reiser were prisoners of the Americans. Pleasance said that the set was very accurate representation of a POW camp.
Oh my God. Well, like, that would be so scary. Like, I can't imagine, man.
Yep.
The actual history between it is very interesting, and I would love to hear more about it. In grade 10 history class, we had to pick a movie that took place during World War II and research the actual history behind it and the characters, and I picked The Sound of Music. And now I'm like, I kind of wish that I had done The Great Escape, because it would be so fascinating to learn all about it and compare it to the film.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm happy that I finally got to see it, at least.
Me too. Yeah. Still haven't seen Sound of Music for me, by the way.
Yeah, we should watch that. That also was a little more adjacent.
Yeah. Speaking of comparing this to other things, maybe not quite as related to Recess as I thought it was going to be going in, but I can still see comparisons.
There's
like,
definitely some.
When the movie started and we heard the opening theme song, the first thing you said was, "Oh, it sounds like Recess."
It does, yeah. I think there's definitely a strong military influence on Recess.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the at the beginning, the marker that says Recess, and we have like Gus.
Sure, yeah.
And Gus's dad.
Yeah.
And there's definitely like a sort of a militaristic jail kind of vibe, where it's like, here is this infrastructure that only works in this situation, and how are they going to maneuver themselves within this given situation?
Yeah.
Very fascinating.
There's still comparisons. Like, as soon as they sent Steve McQueen into his like isolation area, the fridge or whatever, you said the exact thing that I was thinking, which was 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Because it's like, it seems so closely related to TJ being put in the box in that episode, where in isolation.
Yeah, they were purposely trying to isolate the child to like teach them discipline or whatever. So that was very fascinating. And then there's a lot of sort of Prison Break and kind of like schemey, like contraband kind of stuff that they try to get past the teachers and stuff. So
So some more trivia. During idle periods while this movie was in production, all cast and crew members, from Steve McQueen and James Garner to production assistants and obscure food service workers, were asked to take thin 5-inch strings of black rubber and knot them around other thin strings of black rubber of enormous lengths. The finished results of all this knotting were the coils and fences of barbed wire seen throughout the movie, and towards the end when he jumps over the barbed wire at the end.
Oh, wow. So that was like a team effort because
Yeah.
it took forever.
It's just like, oh, you got some time on your hands? Just tie these knots, make some barbed wire.
That's kind of fun.
I was wondering what it was made of because at the end, he crashes, Stephen Queen crashes into the barbed wire and he's like all up in it. He's like tangled.
He definitely did a good job of selling that effect.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to know it's just soft rubber.
Yeah.
The real-life escape preparations involved 600 men working for well over a year. The escape did have the desired effect of diverting German resources, including a doubling of the number of guards after the Gestapo took over the camp from the Luftwaffe.
Mm-hmm.
How do you like them apples?
I mean, mission accomplished then. That's so rough though. I don't know if they said exactly how long it was, but it was assumed it was maybe like a couple months.
Yeah.
Because they celebrated July 4th. So it seemed like they'd been there like a bit, but not like a crazy long amount of time. But
right. So James Garner developed his Scrounger character from his own personal experiences in the military as a self-described Scrounger for his company in the Korean War.
That's amazing.
Now, I want to talk about James Garner for a second.
Mm-hmm.
James Garner, who we grew up watching as the old fart grandfather on 8 Simple Rules. This is the first film that I've seen James Garner in. Holy crap, that man is handsome.
I know. I kept on thinking, like, he could totally be Bruce Campbell's dad.
He could be Bruce Campbell's dad. He could be Batman. He could be American James Bond. Like, this man was made to be on screen. 100%. What the heck?
Well, he had, like, a successful detective show after that, the Rockford Files. So, like, he was kind of a James Bondy character.
Yep. And, like, charismatic and just, like, my eyes were drawn to him every scene that he was in. I was like, man, I want to watch more movies with this guy. I want to know what happened with his career because, man,
I think he just got old.
Great leading man of his day.
Definitely.
Interesting. So I'm actually being proven wrong by some trivia here.
Okay.
So this says Steve McQueen also personally attempted to jump across the border fence but crashed. The jump was successfully performed by Bud Ekins.
Okay.
I feel like I remember reading on the Wikipedia article a different testimony of that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I guess it's kind of like a
he said, she said.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like
audience,
different things.
Do your own research.
Yeah.
Figure out what happened.
I'd like to think that he could do it.
Yep. Paul Brickhill, who wrote the book on which this movie was based, was piloting a Spitfire aircraft that was shot down over Tunisia in March 1943. He was taken to Stalag Luft 3 in Poland, where he assisted in the escape preparations.
So yeah, like 20 years before. That's insane.
Yeah. Crazy.
I want to read this book.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
United Artists Corporation wanted to shorten the film to increase the daily ticket sales.
Yep.
John Sturgis was livid. But United Artists asked for a hefty interest on the $1 million overage. So Sturgis and Harold Mirisch, United Artists executive, went to the Pacific National Bank for a loan. The bank board agreed, provided they could see the film before. They did and loved it, but could not understand how the men got the civilian clothes before the escape. The answer to this issue was contained in the same scene that United Artists wanted to delete from the editing. So the sequence was kept to please the bank executives and get the loan.
Amazing.
I
actually really love that scene because you and I are fashion people. Yeah. So I found it really interesting how they're like, okay, we're taking like this blanket, we're taking this thing, and we're going to turn it into civilian clothes. I found that really cool.
Yeah.
I could have like a 30-minute segment just about how they like made up these civilian clothes.
Absolutely. And last piece of trivia here. The tunnel sets were constructed of wood and skins filled with plaster and dirt and open on one side with a dolly track running along the length of the set in order to shoot the scenes of prisoners scooting along through them. So I think I read that before this was turned into a movie, it was like a live TV play adaptation.
Okay.
Something like
that. I could see that, yeah.
And apparently part of the reason it was so successful or got so much attention was because of their awesome tunnel sets that they constructed like on a stage and were able to film like and capture live.
That's amazing.
So
I love that.
Pretty cool.
I really like seeing the infrastructure of stuff like that, like hidden tunnels and schemes and stuff. Like when people have like secret rooms and that kind of thing. I always find that really fascinating in films. So I'm glad we spent a lot of time kind of going over what those tunnels look like. It was a pretty long sequence of them in the tunnels.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mentioned I have a lot of pieces of trivia. I also have just highlighted a section here all about the historical accuracy that I want to read for you now. So this is a couple of paragraphs, so I'm going to be reading for a while, but we can That's talk fine. In between. So this is very interesting. Former POWs asked the filmmakers to exclude details about the help they received from their home countries, such as maps, papers, and tools hidden in gift packages, lest it jeopardize future POW escapes.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's crazy.
I kind of assume so. They kind of put that on the Scavenger, or I think
Excuse me? Scrounger?
Scrounger.
Sure.
Is they kind of like gave that all to him.
Yeah.
But I kind of assumed that family members and countries would be helping out. I had read in a book, like a trivia book, that they made fake Monopoly games that included like everything that they would need. So like the instruction books were like maps that they needed, and the Monopoly money was like real money, and they like included all the different like pieces of like things that they would need to escape. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it was something maybe in that kind of vein where they set things up to be kind of secretive.
Yeah. The film omits any mention that many Germans willingly helped in the escape itself. The film suggests that the forgers were able to make near exact replicas of just about any pass that was used in Nazi Germany. In reality, the forgers received a great deal of assistance from Germans who lived many hundreds of miles away on the other side of the country. Several German guards who were openly anti-Nazi also willingly gave the prisoners items and assistance of any kind to aid their escape.
Amazing.
The need for such accuracy produced much eye strain, but unlike in the film, there were no cases of blindness. Some, such as Frank Knight, gave up forging because of the strain, but he certainly did not suffer the same ocular fate as the character of Colin Blythe in the film, which was so sad.
That was incredibly sad, but I found it so sweet that James Gardner was like, you know what, buddy? Like, I'm going to help you. I'm going to be your eyes.
Yeah. And then he got taken out.
Yeah, that was so good, though.
The film depicts the escape taking place in ideal weather conditions, whereas at the time, much was done in freezing temperatures and snow lay thick on the ground.
Yeah.
In reality, there were no escapes by aircraft or motorcycle. McQueen requested the motorcycle sequence, which shows off his skills.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. As a keen motorcyclist. He did the stunt riding himself, except for the final jump done by Bud Ekins.
Mm-hmm.
Still worth the multiple minutes of screen time. That they gave to it.
I mean, you know what? For something like this, I get it. They want to make it more exciting for cinema. Fine.
Yep.
Whatever. They want to condense the time period. But that's pretty rough. But I guess that makes sense that they would have to do that in the snow. And I think it makes a lot of sense that a lot of Germans would be anti-Nazi, but they probably couldn't do much about it. Like if they were enlisted in the war, it's like, well, what am I going to do? My family could get killed. You know, if I say anything, speak up or whatever. So a lot of people were trying to help in secret, which I found really cool.
Yeah. There's much more to that section about historical accuracy and just interesting stuff behind every door and nook and cranny about this film. So I encourage you to read up about it. I encourage you to go watch this movie. So one of the last things I want to talk about is a bit of a negative. Just a bit. Because this was a great movie.
Definitely.
One thing that I did not understand, regardless of whether it was historically accurate, because I guess it was, considering they had so many people who were actually POWs or in POW camps in World War II, is why the heck did the Nazi guards treat the prisoners so nicely and give them so much freedom? I guess I understand that the reason why they're prisoners of war and not just killed outright is so that the Nazis have some kind of leverage on the American or British military. I don't understand exactly how that works. I'm not a war buff, but like I can understand that, why they would have to keep them alive. But why is it like, yeah, you can garden and we'll have a library and we're not even really going to watch you that closely and you can get cigarettes and chocolate and like whatever. Just do your thing.
Yeah, that was strange.
I don't understand that
I don't
part.
get that either, but I think there's probably a lot of historical context to that.
I mean,
I don't know.
whether it was real or wasn't, I was willing to look past it enough because it made for an appropriate level of lightheartedness to the first half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
In the second half, it started to not line up quite as much. But
Yeah, like they made moonshine and we're just openly drinking it. Like,
yeah, that seems nuts.
Probably, I would guess that like a lot of guards probably turned a blind eye as well because they didn't care.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Fair enough. So I think I rated this movie on Letterboxd already. I can't remember exactly what I gave it, but I think I gave it a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
Or a 4.5 out of 5.
It was
I'll
a lot of
double-check.
fun. I think it was a lot more well paced than Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, I gave it 4.5 out of 5, also known in the inner circles as 9 out of 10. I was a big fan. And I love watching a new movie that I'm like, yes, I love that movie. Because I had the same feeling with Some Like It Hot.
Yeah, there's certain movies where it's like, I know I'm going to like this, or at least I think I'm going to like this. This one, I was like, oh, I'll probably like it. But other movies, I'm like, I know I'm not going to like this. Like Lawrence of Arabia, I'm like, I know I'm not going to like this.
I did not go in with the same negative attitude. I thought I might like it.
I don't know. I just know myself.
I understand that. I was pretty sure I was going to love The Great Escape.
Yeah, this was great. Yeah, I mentioned there's just like maybe like a couple things in the first half with pacing that I think could have been tightened a lot more, but I think the second half was pretty tight.
Yeah.
And it was very enjoyable overall. Good cast of characters. I would give it an 8.
Yeah.
Simply for that reason. But I do think if you like war movies, if you like old school kind of movies, old Hollywood movies, I think you would enjoy this audience. So.
Yeah. And I once again, I'll loop back to my statement at the beginning. I think this is a really great example of a solid, long movie. Of a great movie that is just about 3 hours and it doesn't suffer from being 3 hours.
I think yes, this is what I was saying earlier, is there's so many characters and you want to devote certain amounts of time to each character, so it makes sense for it to be long. Even something like The Godfather, it's spanning a course of time. You have like the different family members it's focusing on. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to it. Whereas Lawrence of Arabia, it's like, okay, we see another shot of the desert. Great. Like there's just so much that could have been cut, I think, personally. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, The Great Escape is the kind of movie that we could sit here for like another 2 hours with the scenes in front of us and go like, let the scenes play out and be like, okay, I love this aspect of this scene, or I love what this character's doing here. I don't know if I could say the same about Lawrence of Arabia, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely some cool shots, but that's like about as much as I can say about it. I was like, oh, this is a cool shot in the desert.
Fair enough.
This is a cool like
yeah. So strong recommendation for The Great Escape for us.
Yeah.
We should probably wrap up because we got some rollerblading to go do.
Yeah.
Roller skating, and not rollerblading.
Then watching Xanadu. I think that's about rollerblading.
We're watching Xanadu?
I made that up.
Okay, we're watching Xanadu. And then after that, we're going to be watching All the President's Men.
Yeah, we're going to talk about All the President's Men, not Xanadu.
Yeah. And then wrapping up with Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, heavy films, I think.
Yeah.
So
look forward to it.
Yeah.
By the way, I have no idea what All the President's Men is about, so I can't produce any predictions.
Okay.
So that's all you.
Yeah. What I've seen like half of it.
What?
You didn't know this?
No.
This is like a great unfinished for me.
Okay.
I've seen
Now I'm not looking forward to it because it obviously was bad enough that you watched half of it and then stopped.
I also watched half of Kramer versus Kramer. Kramer versus Kramer is a good movie.
Okay, that's fair.
So it doesn't mean anything. I watched the first half and I was like, this is really good. But then my bus ride ended and I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm just not going to.
What happened with me in Titanic?
Yeah.
I was doing my homework while watching it and I finished my homework and it's time to go to bed.
Well, I guess we got to watch Titanic together.
I guess we just got to watch every movie ever made, basically.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
It's been 60 years or whatever that Rose says.
I wouldn't know. I haven't seen the rest of it. Okay,
All
thanks
right.
everybody for listening.
Bye.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and hope to see you again, metaphorically, in the next one.
Yeah.
Take
Take care.